Good afternoon, my beautiful babes and babes. Very subtle tone shift there. Right. Okay, so I'm your resident active advocate, and today I have two things. I have a video and I have an apology for not uploading on Thursday. I made a video on Thursday, however, which I will be uploading after this video. So, yeah, two for the price of one today. Hurrah. But today, in this video, I would like to talk to you about the independent living movement. So, all right, you know how we were talking about group homes versus institutionalization, and how group homes are nowadays considered to be the preferable option, and especially in the sense that institutions could often be very abusive because of the top-down structure, because of a lack of social change that had yet to occur, or because of social change that had yet to occur, not a lack thereof. Anyway, double negative. But group homes benefit people in that they allow for people with certain similar disabilities to live together and to be cared for by people, if they require care, who are well versed in what they are doing and they have training in what they are doing, right? The independent living movement, which is newer, by the way, than the move from institutionalization to group homes, the independent living movement takes that one step further and says, if you are a person with a disability who is capable of living on their own and chooses to live on their own, then that is what you should do. Now, there's a lot of fine print to parse out here because capable of could, quotation marks by the way, could mean many different things to many different people. Some people may see me as incapable of living on my own because of my visual impairment. What if she cuts her finger off in the kitchen, right? That's why I'm careful when I cut things with a knife, obviously. When you have been living with a disability for a long time, or even for the entirety of your life, you do learn how to live within those parameters. And it is for that reason that I fully believe people should set their own parameters and not be told by society, we think you can do this, but we're not quite sure. So just for the sake of your safety, we're going to make sure that you don't do this. And that comes down to the independent living movement, where society may say, well, we don't quite think you're capable. As I say, there's a lot of fine print here. However, when it comes to people who, even by society's standards, are seen as capable of living on their own, for example, people with chronic illnesses rather than disabilities, although chronic illnesses can themselves be disabilities or can become disabilities. But illness is sort of considered one tier, social tier, quotation marks, above disability. So here's chronic illness, here's disability, beneath that. But people with chronic illness are often considered capable of living on their own. And that's a good thing, you know. But at the same time, because this movement is fairly new, people with chronic illness, people with disabilities who are capable of living on their own, they may still need help, but because of the newness of this movement, as I say, it may be difficult for them to acquire that help. There are people called PSWs, or personal support workers, who are hired on by an individual or by an organization to go in and help an individual taking care of their own needs, but that person is still living on their own. So let's use myself as an example. If there were something that I felt I could not do because of my vision, I would, if I were living on my own, call in a PSW to do that thing for me. Say my grocery shopping, for example, right? The problem with that is that PSWs, while they are not few and far between because there is a great deal of demand for them now that the independent living movement is gaining some traction and some steam, While there is a great demand for them and while there are many of them, the problem is that their contracts will not usually allow them to have more than 3 hours a week with the person to whom they have been assigned. And you will also see very often a rotating cast of PSWs. So the two detriments to this are that, number one, you can't possibly fill every need a person could have in the course of 3 hours per week, number one. Number two, with the rotating cast thing going on, it's very difficult, if not impossible, to build up a trusting personal relationship with the person you may be depending on to do these odd jobs for you. And even the degree to which they can help you will vary even within that time frame, because there could be someone like me who may just need, and this is only an example, I wouldn't actually need someone to do my grocery shopping for me, but who may just need someone to get their groceries for them. That takes maybe an hour. Okay, fine. And you only have to do that once a week. However, there could be someone who is not able to get out of bed by themselves, who is not able to dress themselves, but who, apart from that, can go about perfectly, quote, normally within their daily life. It's just a matter of getting up and getting prepared for the day. That could, throughout the week, since they would have to come in and do that 7 times a week for you, add up to over 3 hours. And the problem with that is that contractually they are bound to their time limit, and they may rush the jobs. They may not want to do the job one day. They may even, I have heard of cases of PSWs missing their alarms, and then you, as the person with the disability, are stuck in bed for 2 hours and are not able to get to your job on time. That sort of thing. So the move towards independent living is an extremely positive idea, but in terms of execution, we're not quite there yet. As I say, this movement is quite new. This has only been going on, and I say new in relative terms, this has only been going on for maybe 10 or 20 years. It's not, it's not fully formed yet. The problem is top-down bureaucracy, as I talk about all the time, moves slow as a snail. Slower than a snail. I'm talking about a snail on sedatives. That was a lot of S sounds. But that's the whole problem with bureaucracy. And I think that more needs to come from the grassroots level in order for change to really be enacted in Canada and even globally, which is another reason why I'm making these videos. So pay attention for any of those who like their structure, because I'm really not a fan. And I think that we can do better, because there are more of, quote, us than there are of them at the top of the pyramid, quotation marks, because I don't believe in social hierarchy. Basically, the whole idea here is that people who want to live independently should be allowed to do so, and should be allowed to do so with no obstacle in their way. Because the problem is, people who do not have disabilities are perfectly capable of getting on in their lives without needing this, quote, extra help. The whole attitude behind this is that this is considered an extra. This is considered a gift. Freedom is not a thing that can be given, though. If freedom can be given, it can be taken away, and that is not freedom. Freedom is a thing that has to be built in from the start. Now, we don't have that ethos yet when it comes to people living with disabilities, and especially when it comes to people living with disabilities who are living on their own. We don't, quote, trust them yet, because, the societal ethos has not come that far. But we need to start viewing one another as equals. If we don't, then freedoms are going to be restricted for more and more people. And you see this happening all over the place with all sorts of different kinds of people. It's not just people with disabilities. But if I go any further than that, I will be talking outside of my realm, and I don't want to speak for people who don't want me to speak for them. So that is my video for today, as well as the quote bonus episode that was Thursday's episode, Thursday from last week. I will be uploading both, one right after the other, and sorry about that. All right, so I will see you all tomorrow, potentially to talk about a more contentious issue. But I need to read up more on this thing before I actually go ahead and talk about it, because it's quite thorny. And it is like this, by the way, this is a bioethical issue. The issue of bodily autonomy and what we are able to do within our own space and our own scope. That is a bioethical issue as well. But the one that I am thinking of for tomorrow is more than slightly more contentious. So that'll be interesting anyway, but I want to read up more on it before I go tackling it. All right, so I will see y'all tomorrow, and have a lovely afternoon. Mwah!